have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
And I'm Ann Northrup.
And in the news, the Mississippi governor did sign that religious liberty bill to give citizens the right to discriminate if it is based on their sincere religious belief. And wait till you hear what they're going to teach in sex education in Mississippi.
But we have better news from a number of places, including Ohio, where we have another marriage equality win.
And some famous first daughters say that they are for marriage equality.
And a former president also chimed in on that.
Yes.
The U.S. Supreme Court has let stand a ruling that a New Mexico wedding photographer illegally discriminated when she refused her services to a lesbian couple. This is going to wipe out all those religious liberty laws.
Okay.
If we're lucky.
Okay. Nebraska's LGBT rights bill was killed by a filibuster. I didn't know state legislatures had filibusters.
Well, now you know.
I do. I do in Nebraska.
New York City's mayor will let religious groups, I'm detecting a theme here today, use public schools for regular worship, despite the courts upholding city policy against it, and despite Andy Hum confronting him on it.
Don't do it, Bill. The Mozilla Megillah continues with the resignation of anti-gay CEO Brendan Eich. Is that how we say his name?
I don't know if it's
E-I-C-H is, we haven't even learned to say his name, but he's gone now.
There's a very lovely design of the new Harvey Milk stamp that has been revealed. We'll show it to you, and that stamp will be available in May.
A man in Miami, Florida, who was disgusted by lesbians, burned their trailer down.
Well, he says he just set fire to the mattress outside, but we'll show you some video. There is an unanticipated and very heartening glimmer of light from a Russian court on gay issues.
In Los Angeles, 3 gay men have died of meningitis, so there's a great alarm there and a need for folks to get vaccinated.
We'll give you our take on 2 gay-themed shows, Terrence McNally's Mothers and Sons and If Then with Idina Menzel.
Oh, is that how you say her name? And I will tout a new farce by David Ives and Denzel Washington and Lorraine Hansberry's A Raisin in the Sun.
That's now a farce?
No, that's not a farce.
Oh, David Ives
farce.
And Denzel Washington.
Yeah, sorry,
I see. Lacking a comma, I misread it.
Yes.
All right, but we're going to start in Mississippi because why not? And the story there that we've been following is that similarly to Arizona, the legislature proposed one of these religious liberty bills that says that a business owner or anyone, I guess, can discriminate on the basis of their deeply held religious belief.
And what Governor Jan Brewer would not do in Arizona, Governor Phil Bryant did. He signed it. What can we say? Jeff,
well, there's some dispute over whether it is extensive as the Arizona bill, but the fact is what it says is the government may not put an undue burden on people's exercise of their religious convictions.
Well,
and what that boils down to is you can't prosecute someone for saying, Jesus told me that I can't serve gay people.
What if Allah told me or my funny God down someplace else said to do it? Is that okay too then?
Well, we'll see how hypocrisy plays out because, of course, the New York City story is very hypocritical.
Yes. Jeff White of the Mississippi Gulf Coast Lesbian and Gay Community Center, it's the first time he's thought of moving out of Mississippi. This whole thing has made him physically ill, as will the new sex ed curriculum that was passed and signed by the governor. It teaches that homosexuality is illegal under the unnatural intercourse law, which is already unconstitutional under the Supreme Court sodomy decision. And they have to teach that a monogamous relationship in the context of marriage is the only appropriate setting for sexual intercourse. I don't imagine that covers that much sex in Mississippi, but that's what's the only one that's appropriate. It also prohibits condom demos, as Mayors Giuliani and Bloomberg did for a long time in New York.
Yes.
And it requires males and females to be taught separately. I'm not even so sure that's a bad idea in some cases.
I have no objection to that, but I would like them to be taught the
Yes.
full facts and the reality of
Absolutely.
life, not just 10%. A couple of things. First of all, Mississippi is one of the many states that has no non-discrimination law for sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. So the new religious liberty bill, while heinous and stomach-turning, is actually not changing the situation.
So
People are free to
if
discriminate.
we passed a federal LGBT rights law that covered the whole country, would they would then try to invoke this?
Well, Kate Kendall of NCLR, the National Center for Lesbian Rights, guest on this show a few weeks ago, called this new Mississippi law blatantly unconstitutional. And that is what is trickling down in my own brain and what is developing in some other contexts that we may get to shortly, which is, first of all, is there a right already in the Constitution under sex discrimination laws that should have been and might be covering us for sexual orientation?
Right.
We have a case coming up
Yes.
that asserts that. We have never been included in that way before, but it is a possible avenue. Or just equal protection laws may, now that they're being used in marriage cases, may be read as broader non-discrimination laws in housing, employment, and public accommodations. That could be an avenue. Plus which, just as the Colorado Amendment 2 law years ago was read ultimately by the Supreme Court as unconstitutional because it singled out a group on the basis of animus for non-participation.
That would be us.
Yes. So this religious liberty bill and others like it may ultimately be ruled unconstitutional as a violation of equal protection or whatever.
You know, obviously what they do in Hobby Lobby is going to be affect a lot of this.
Absolutely.
And by the way, we learned about Hobby Lobby this week that they invested millions in manufacturers. The company did in emergency contraceptive devices.
Speaking of hypocrisy,
drugs, excuse me, drugs.
We're not going to pay for insurance coverage for our employees if it includes contraceptives.
But if we can make some money off emergency contraceptive drugs, hallelujah.
Yes. Many of which I suppose would be defined as abortifacients.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much for that. So the right wing has not given up. They continue to try to march forward, and we continue to push back and win some and lose some.
Right.
But I think ultimately we will win on these religious liberty things. But it took us 17 years to overturn Bowers v. Hardwick. With the Lawrence case, it took us 17 years to overturn DOMA. Section 2, and we'll see how long it takes us to get rid of this
staying
stuff.
on the marriage theme, on the religious theme, the big, kind of a big decision from the Supreme Court this week in that they did not take the appeal from New Mexico of that wedding photographer,
Elaine Photography.
Hujanin, who ran afoul of the state anti-discrimination law when she refused service to a lesbian couple. The New Mexico Supreme Court said services can be regulated, even though those services include artistic and creative work. And she cited her religious beliefs and her free speech rights, but she has been denied now.
Well, particularly free speech she cited on the grounds that it wasn't just a business, and she wasn't just, refusing to do business with a gay couple. She was retaining rights to her own artistic expression as a First Amendment right. And the New Mexico court said, nonsense, you're a business, and as a public accommodation, you cannot discriminate in who your clientele is. And because New Mexico has an anti-discrimination law that includes sexual orientation and gender identity, as 27 states do not, or 29, I lose count. But in that case where the state has that law, then you can't discriminate, and the Supreme Court agreed with that.
I mean, but what do these religions teach about homosexuality anyway? What they really teach is that you shouldn't engage in homosexual acts. I mean, the wedding is not a homosexual act. You're not being asked to take pictures of sex.
You're not going to be able to parse out people's religious beliefs.
I'm just saying what's the real problem with what she's doing? I mean, what's the real problem with photographing a gay wedding?
They don't like us, and if they do business with us or talk to us or shake our hands, then they are approving of us, and that is against their God.
There you are.
Also, what else was I going to say about that?
Representative Vance McAllister of Louisiana. Sure.
Supreme Court didn't take that case?
Yes.
That means they could not get even 4 votes on the Supreme Court, because that's what it takes to grant cert in a case.
Because then they would be grappling with all the anti-discrimination laws in the country, essentially, on this basis.
You have 4 bedrock conservatives on the Supreme Court. Yeah. And they took the Prop 8 case.
Well, not that Roberts. He let that Obamacare go through.
Well, but not in the right way. So I think that's a very good sign that the Supreme Court would not even consider the case, could not round up 4 votes to take the case.
Right. Okay. Well,
Sorry to interrupt.
I guess if we're staying on religion, we should deal with Mayor de Blasio in New York.
Okay.
Did we tell them already that at the Court of Appeals, the city had a policy under Mayor Bloomberg. We aren't very fond of Mayor Bloomberg, but he had a policy that said, look, religious groups are allowed to meet in schools. They're allowed to have meetings and things and rent out space and all that kind of stuff. But we can't have them having regular worship for a lot of reasons.
Establishment of religion, for
most of which were supplied by Carmen Farina, who is now the chancellor of the schools under de Blasio, under Mayor de Blasio. And she laid out the whole case.
As a witness in an earlier case.
In this case. And she said it shows favoritism. Kids get confused that they think there's a church in the school. They get confused when they see their teachers going to the church there when they also use it as a school. It favors Christians because it's usually available on Sunday morning and it's not available on Friday afternoon when they want to do prayers in Islam.
They also leave a lot of literature around the school. They leave signs up for their religion. They come to PTA meetings and proselytize.
Right. And Carmen Farina, who is the chancellor, said, she was the deputy chancellor then, said this is a violation of the separation of church and state. Now that she's under a new mayor, she's saying, oh, never mind. She swore to all these things. She's not answering questions about it other than to say, oh, we can work it out. And the mayor is hell-bent on forcing these things into the school, says there's no problem. I'm outraged about this because I care about the separation of church and state and I care about the Constitution. I haven't taken an oath to uphold the Constitution. He did, and he's not doing it.
And you, I have to state parenthetically, won an award around these issues this week. You and your colleagues at Gay City News
Art Leonard, Duncan Osborne, and Paul Schindler for our coverage of religion.
At Gay City News.
From the New York Press Association.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Well deserved.
We should have submitted some tapes from this show. They would have been even more impressed. All right.
Next year.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's go back to marriage news. Latest news in North Carolina, the ACLU has filed a new lawsuit on behalf of 3 couples. Each of the couples contains partners who have real health issues. This is a new sort of track we've figured out in these cases, is to go in on an emergency basis and say, look, this couple's been together for 47 years. One of them is about to die. If you don't let them get married right away, they're going to be deprived of all these benefits they should have. So, new case in North Carolina.
And in Ohio, the federal judge there, our friend, what is his name?
Timothy Black.
Timothy Black.
Love Timothy Black.
Has announced in advance, I'm going to strike down the ban on recognition of out-of-state gay marriages. And it's in the 6th Circuit with Michigan, Kentucky, and Tennessee.
Yes, all of which have marriage cases.
Right.
Now, the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals has been asked by the Michigan Attorney General to take all these cases en banc with the whole court. Usually what happens is we've won at the state level, the district court level, federal court, but original jurisdiction in all these cases. So now they're all supposed to go to the Court of Appeals, but a 3-judge panel. And then, depending on that, it would be appealed to the entire court.
Well, you tell the Michigan Attorney General to get on the people in his party so that we can get more federal judges on the bench, which they're blocking in the Senate.
Yes.
So that they could have time to all hear it at once.
I'm not quite sure. Maybe he just thinks it's too expensive to go through the 3-judge panel, or I don't know what his reasoning is.
They're going to lose all these cases.
They are. So maybe he figures one big loss is better than 4 losses plus 1 loss.
By the time you have seen this show, Utah's case at the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals will have been heard.
In Florida, there is yet another rogue case that has been filed by a guy in Chipley, Florida, which is in the Panhandle. He and his partner went and applied for a marriage license, were rejected, and have filed another lawsuit. We now have cases all over Florida, from Key West to the Panhandle.
Right.
Independent crowds in Florida. And in Alabama, the House there has voted for a resolution for a national constitutional convention.
Good luck with that.
To put together a constitutional amendment to ban same-sex marriage.
Well,
no, they're not
I
going
do think
anywhere
we're
with
going to
that.
need a constitutional convention if we're ever going to get a constitutional amendment against get campaign finances under control.
Well,
although the Supreme Court did decline to hear a case striking down, that would have weakened the laws.
I am extremely
Further.
nervous, as are many people, about any constitutional convention, state or
No,
federal.
we always vote against them, but
Yes, we do,
We
because
shouldn't-
there are crazy people out there who will do crazy things at these constitutional conventions.
they speak very highly of us.
Well, speaking highly, there is something going on this week called the Civil Rights Summit in Austin, Texas.
It's the 50th anniversary of the passage of the Civil Rights Act of
Yes, it is.
1964 under President Lyndon Baines Johnson,
Yes.
which is being dramatized on stage in All the Way on Broadway with Bryan Cranston. That act, the passage of that act.
Okay, and there are gathered many luminaries, former presidents, etc. Everyone from Billie Jean King to President Obama.
When was she president, Billie Jean? I missed that. And she'd been a fine president.
Coming up.
Why not?
At any rate, one of the first issues that this summit has dealt with is same-sex marriage. They had Olson and Boyce there on a panel the first day. They have a book coming out, by the way, so watch for that in June. And everyone is saying, this is a civil rights issue. Let's look at this in the context of the Civil Rights Act. But Katie Couric did an interview with Lyndon Johnson's daughters, Lucy and Linda.
Right.
And asked them about their opinion of same-sex marriage now and what they think their father would have thought about all of this. We have a video excerpt.
That was posted on our Tumblr by Esther Huang. She writes, "The most comparable and obvious civil rights issue today would be on the rights for homosexual partners to marry."
Well, it's a great civil rights concern of our day. We are prevented from the most important union of marriage simply because of who you love. And that is a great tragedy from my own perspective.
Do you think that your dad would have supported the notion of gay marriage?
I just can't, it's hard to project what Daddy would have thought about that, because that wasn't an issue that had come upon the stage at that time. But I know he really wanted everybody to be able to live up to the best that God gave them.
And social justice was terribly important to Lyndon
Absolutely.
Johnson across the board.
What
And-
about for you all? How important is gay marriage to the two of you?
Well, we all have friends who are gay. And obviously, heterosexuals have divorce and have problems in their lives. And I can't say that we are all perfect. And I certainly think that if God made you a homosexual, that you should have love and affection with somebody. And I would not want to deny anybody that opportunity to be happy.
And I guess my own opinion is that I do not think that being a homosexual is something that's a choice any more than the fact that I am 5'4" is a choice and not my sister's beautiful height. It's just a fact of life. And to deny someone the chance to have the kind of love I have in my marriage simply based upon the fact that the person whom they love is of the same gender just seems to me to be morally wrong and deeply tragic. And I don't see how giving them the blessing of respect in any way hurts me. I think my father felt very strongly that when there was bigotry anywhere, prejudice anywhere, all of us lose out because it's just one more expression of hate.
Wow, thank you. We remember, of course, those women from when they were youngsters.
Absolutely. And actually, I had an encounter with Linda Byrd's husband, Chuck Robb, the former senator from Virginia, at the '96 Democratic Convention, when the Senate was about to pass the Defense of Marriage Act, and I was there with a Gay USA crew and went around to every damn senator I could get my hands on to say, are you going to vote for this horrible thing?
Good for you.
No one else in the press was aware of this. And I got to Chuck Robb, and he just blew me away. He was the most wonderful, eloquent person on this. He said, you know, DOMA is insane, horrible. I am totally for LGBT rights. It is the civil rights issue of our time. This was almost 20 years ago. And I am proud and happy to be a supporter of LGBT rights.
I remember that interview. It was very moving.
It was. It almost made me cry.
If only he had voted against Clarence Thomas. That was a close vote. But he those were the days when the parties were sort of saying, give the president his due, give him his choice, that kind of stuff.
Except, thank God, for Robert Bork.
It was a big mistake. Now, this, of course, made me think of LBJ's top aide, who was Walter Jenkins. We have a picture of him here. This was President Johnson's top aide, who was arrested he was a married man with a bunch of kids, but he was arrested for having sex with a man in a D.C. restroom. Johnson got rid of him. Lady Bird, the wife of the president, issued a statement in support of Walter Jenkins. Some of this was dramatized in the play I'm telling you about. Goldwater, who was running against Johnson in '64, he didn't do this personally. They distributed a bumper sticker saying, all the way with LBJ, but don't go near the YMCA. Ramsey Clark, who was the Attorney General, still a great activist, said that Jenkins' departure from the administration deprived the president of the single most effective and trusted aide he had. And he says the whole history of the time might have been different, Vietnam and everything else, if Walter Jenkins had still been allowed to be around.
Yeah. Well, a lot of lost talent in many ways. Jimmy Carter, by the way, was at the Civil Rights Summit in Austin, and he spoke in favor of same-sex marriage.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Okay, other news. Well, and in other late politicians, Harvey Milk has finally been accorded the honor of a stamp by the United States Postal Service.
We have a picture of it.
It will be issued on May 22nd, which I think was his birthday. It's Harvey Milk Day in California or in San Francisco. I think that's a very attractive design. For those of you listening,
it's a photograph.
Black and white head and shoulders shot of Harvey with a nice little vertical rainbow flag on the upper left corner. And it is a forever stamp.
Yes. Are there any Westboro Baptist Church people who are going to be out there protesting? Are there any left?
Yes, they have not gone away.
Okay. Well, in other news, in Louisiana, Representative Vance McAllister, a big anti-gay bigot, was caught kissing a staffer, not his wife.
Yes.
The staffer is gone. They don't say fired. They say she resigned.
Well, she's married, too.
Her husband says McAllister has wrecked his life, and McAllister has no plans to resign.
No, he's running again. I think the wife has wrecked the husband's life, too. Let's not blame just the congressman.
Well, I know, but I mean, you know.
It takes two to tango.
And of course, he's also abusing power of a staffer.
Of course,
That can be sexual harassment.
Yes. But the fact that the congressman is, he's one of these right-wing Christian hypocritical types. All right, Mozilla, the CEO, Brendan Eich did resign.
Under the present circumstances, I can't be an effective leader, he said.
Yeah.
The chair of the board said that Mozilla believes in equality and freedom of speech, and equality is necessary for meaningful speech.
There's a big debate going on about whether he has a right to his opinions and his job, as long as he's not acting those opinions out on his job. He has refused to apologize for his opinions or change them. He's implied he feels the same way. Mozilla regards this as a business decision. We will lose business if we allow him to remain, just because he's known as a right-winger.
People don't get asked. Well, first of all, there weren't really calls for him to resign, other than from people in the company who just didn't like working for somebody who was an anti-gay bigot. Now, some people think that word is strong, but when you say I shouldn't have the same rights as you do, I think that's bigotry.
I agree completely. And again, as I go back and forth on this question, what interests me and impresses me is the fact that the employees spoke up so strongly when he was appointed.
Often the non-gay employees.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more from them about why they think he was inappropriate as a CEO, why, when he promised to keep his opinions private. But so I think there's more we haven't heard.
Right.
We're also a little upset with Houston Mayor Annise Parker, the out lesbian, because she is going to propose a human rights ordinance and a human rights commission for Houston, but the ordinance will bar discrimination by sexual orientation or gender identity or expression in housing and public accommodations, but not in employment. And we haven't quite figured out why. So there's pressure on her to, in fact, include employment in that.
Right.
And of course, President Obama is still being pressured to issue an executive order protecting us as we work for federal contractors, and he's still refusing to, but he just did it for women.
Why is he being so withholding? What, are you saving it up for Pride Day? I thought you were going to do that last year. Well, Nebraska's being withholding. The LGBT rights bill there was killed by a filibuster. Senators voted 26-22 to end the debate, but that was 7 votes short of the supermajority that was needed. Omaha has passed an anti-discrimination ordinance in 2012. Lincoln did one too, but they're working on getting rid of that through some kind of a referendum or something.
I wouldn't be surprised. In South Carolina, they're actually making a little progress on this. A subcommittee in their House held a hearing and heard testimony on enacting a non-discrimination law for employment covering sexual orientation and gender identity. Now, this is just a first hearing in a House subcommittee, but that's still miles ahead of anything South Carolina has done.
Should we do some transgender news?
Sure.
Well, in Wisconsin, and we have a picture of the first female-to-male transgender elected to the city council there in Appleton, Wisconsin. This is Gypsy Vered Meltzer, elected to the city council.
Congratulations.
Right. And on other transgender news, the Social Security Administration has updated their guidelines, making it easier for transgender folks to be eligible for survivor benefits. Robina Asti, 92, had lived as a woman for 40 years and was initially denied benefits after her husband died because she was born a man. So.
And in, let's see, where have I got that?
Well, we also have
the auto company story. A widow of a transgender man, they'd been married for many years. He worked for an auto company, and he died. And she applied for survivor benefits and pension benefits. And the auto company, which had recognized them as a married couple for many years when he was alive.
As long as it didn't cost them anything.
Yeah. Now stepped in and said, well, we're not so sure your marriage was legal,
we might be able to save a few bucks like we did on those ignitions.
Yeah. But they have now changed their mind. The widow will receive the pension and the benefits from the auto company, but it was a big fight.
We also have a picture. Oh, do we have a picture? I think. Oh, maybe I didn't send the picture in. Transgender pioneer Christy Lee Vandepute has died at the age of. Oh, okay, a little bit out of order. But if you have it, you have it. You don't, you don't. She challenged a Texas court ruling that invalidated her marriage to her late husband, even though she was recognized as a woman by Texas courts. They ruled her marriage was same-sex and invalid because she was born a man. I mean, in February, the case of Nikki Araguz, the Texas Court of Appeals ruled in her favor in a similar case. Vandepute did lose in court, but had settled the case for a $2 million settlement.
You know, Texas has this county-by-county system where some counties recognize gender change, others don't, and so the marriage laws
It's county
get all
by
confused. It is county-by-county. Soon it'll be house-by-house.
Any more transgender stuff? No, go ahead.
Okay. This is a decision I referred to earlier. A district court judge says that Peter Tervier can sue the Library of Congress for sex discrimination under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act because he was harassed as gay by his boss. Now, there is no federal law protecting us from discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation.
Gays and lesbians.
But this district court judge is now, for the first time, reading the Civil Rights Act prohibition against sex discrimination as covering sexual orientation.
As the EEOC has read the sex discrimination statute for transgender folks.
Because the employer views the employee's sexual orientation as not consistent with acceptable gender roles.
Which is the basis of the discrimination against us.
Right. And the
hatred of us.
And so this court is saying that is sex discrimination, and Peter may pursue his suit against the Library of Congress. This is the guy whose boss started yelling at him as soon as he found out he was gay. He had tried to set him up with his daughter, and then just treated him like garbage when he found out he was gay.
Well, he spent all that time and effort trying to get his daughter a date.
The EEOC, by the way, is looking at 200 plus charges of sexual orientation discrimination as sex discrimination.
Let's give him some more good news. At the University of Massachusetts, and we do have a picture of him, Derek Gordon is the first openly gay player in Division I basketball. He is a sophomore. There he is at UMass. He's come out. Congratulations.
Came out to his team, big success.
If you're going to come out, do it this year because it's not going to be news in a little while.
Well, if we're going to talk about sports, then we should also include the swimmers from the University of Virginia, your alma mater.
Can we pull that picture up?
Yeah.
The sign that they are holding up, these 5 men, is 2 of us are gay, the other 3 don't care. Well, that's sweet. I think that's really sweet. Well, wait a minute. Which are the gay ones? Can you tell? I don't know.
The guy holding the sign is one of the gay ones.
How do you know that?
Because I read it.
Okay.
He's the one who provoked this, but I can't tell you which of the other 4 is gay.
We can't even tell anymore.
Even with our gaydar, I would say they all look gay.
Stop it.
Well, diver Tom Daley has now come out as gay. He's the one who's dating Dustin Lance Black. He had dated girls when it was revealed he was dating Lance.
Still fancies girls.
Yeah, but now not so much.
Call him. He describes his relationship with Dustin Lance Black as all good, and they're going on 5 months now.
Very good. Congratulations.
Okay.
Honey Made Graham Crackers had an ad with diverse families saying this is wholesome. They got a lot of pushback from right-wing creeps on their website. They put out a new video in response where artists did this whole thing about turning all the bad tweets and comments into a big love picture. If you care, go to the Honey Made Graham Crackers site. You can see that.
Chick-fil-A, we told you how they're headed by an anti-gay CEO named Dan Cathy, and he is now opening 108 stores, most of them in urban areas, most of them in New York City. So Cathy says he plans to tone down the conservative agenda. Oh, I'll leave that to the politicians because I want to sell chicken.
even though I still want to use the profits to finance right-wing organizations. That's the key to this.
Right.
And now, he claimed recently that he was cutting back on those donations, but they have not been ended, and a lot of your Chick-fil-A money is still going to right-wing organizations. So you might want to check that out before you patronize them. And there's an organic grocery store in Oregon that's in trouble because they've gone into a new, very progressive community, and the people there found out that the owner of this great progressive organic store hates same-sex marriage and sexual orientation non-discrimination.
On Facebook.
Yeah.
Right, that's how they found out.
But we have intimidated...
Wait a minute.
Oh, go ahead.
She says she's got homosexuals in the family. I got homosexuals in the family. This is the new defense.
Are they organic?
Yeah, well.
According to Lucy and Linda Johnson, they are.
Yeah.
We have succeeded in turning around the DJ in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, who was, blasting the student at Winston-Salem Community College, who's a cross-dresser who was running for, student of the year or something. The DJ has now apologized for his tweets, and they will meet and talk. Always a good idea.
Did we do the Minnesota House narrowly?
No.
They narrowly passed a toughening of the state anti-bullying law. Governor Dayton should have signed it by the time you see this. It requires districts to track and investigate bullying and better train the staff to prevent it, as opposed to just having any old policy.
Well, speaking of bullying, let's go to Miami, where a 73-year-old man, who is a registered sex offender for going after some kid under 12, was disgusted by the lesbians living next door in the trailer park with their kids and kissing in front of him. So he
was ready to explode.
Yeah, but he got caught. Because he fessed up to this. We have a local news report on this. Let's roll
Caught on
that.
camera, an apparent act of hate. This is video here of an arson attack that destroyed the home of a lesbian couple. And that, police say, is not a coincidence. Team 6's Jamie Garola live in Northwest Miami-Dade with what it is that makes them so certain, Jamie.
Well, good evening, Keith. It is unclear whether the suspect has a mental illness, but according to police, he said he was disgusted by lesbians. Now, we've also just learned that he is a registered sex offender convicted of molesting somebody under 12 years old. The man you see walking in the top right corner of your screen is accused of trying to set a trailer on fire while 10 people, mostly children, slept inside.
I seen the light, and I heard something like crickling too. So she woke everybody up and we came outside. We would have been dead because there was like gas tanks there too.
The target, according to an arrest form, the couple who lives inside. The motive, police allege, is hate.
I think it's stupid because we have plenty of lesbian couples that have children. So I don't understand why he's hating us.
In documents obtained by NBC6, 73-year-old Braulio Valenzuela told police he tried to burn the trailer down because he despised the two adult victims from the simple fact that they were lesbians. And, according to the defendant, every time he saw them kissing, he felt a deep repugnance. And in his opinion, they did not deserve to have children.
You have been charged with 10 counts of attempted second-degree murder.
But in bond court, Valenzuela painted a different story than what he told police. Through a translator, he said he's innocent.
I have nothing. I have done nothing.
Even the family he targeted said his criminal intent comes as a surprise.
I don't even know what was the problem with that because everybody knew and that wasn't really a big deal. No one actually bothered him or nothing.
Valenzuela is charged with 10 counts of attempted murder and 1 count of arson. His bond was set at $250,000. Reporting live in northwest Miami-Dade, Jamie Garola, NBC6, South Florida.
Can't we all get along?
Evidently not. In New York State, a committee of the Assembly has passed the No Conversion Therapy for Minors bill, the first step in that.
The Department of Justice and the Office of Violence Against Women have released guidance to inform those who work in intimate partner and sexual violence about a non-discrimination condition in the Violence Against Women Act to protect LGBTQ survivors from discrimination.
Yes. And April 11th, the Day of Silence, as created by GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, when schools observe this. The right wing is telling parents to keep their children home from this horrible event.
All right.
All right, international news.
Well, let's start with some good news in Russia. We never give you good news from Russia. A district court there ruled that 2 LGBT rallies can proceed despite opposition from local officials. The lower courts had sided with the officials in the western region of Kostroma.
Nikolai Alexeyev brought this case.
Yes, he did.
And heaped a little aspersion on those of us who've been activists and said, see, we go to court, we win.
Well, Nikolai, tell Nikolai to stop saying bad things about Jews.
Yes, that would be nice.
Yes.
In worse news, in Egypt, 4 gay men arrested at parties, which have been described by the government as deviant parties, have been assigned to up to 8 years in prison.
Now, Egypt doesn't technically ban gay sex.
No,
but it prosecutes for debauchery.
Yeah.
These arrests have risen since President Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood was deposed, ousted back in July. That's terrible.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a very mixed bag, all of these things.
Please.
Yeah, you bring in religious governments.
And it's getting more mixed in South Africa. Now, this is the first country in the world to protect us in the Constitution on the basis of sexual orientation. But Jacob Zuma says he respects Uganda's right to criminalize gay people. He respects their sovereignty. The South African Human Rights Commission called on the government to make its rejection of Uganda's draconian laws clear and visible.
In Argentina, President Cristina Kirchner agreed to be a godmother to a young girl born to a lesbian couple. And the girl was christened. The president sent a representative who was a female naval officer. We have a picture of the christening, I believe.
There they are.
Yeah, there they are. The couple and baby on the right, the representative of the president on the left, happy, applauding, smiling. That's a sweet picture.
It helps. It helps. In Kenya, they had the Regional Pan-African International Lesbian and Gay Association Conference amidst tight security. The politicians there are proposing a Uganda-Nigeria-style anti-gay law, but there were no security breaches and 150 people attended.
Not so lucky in Uganda. We have worried about the consequences of this anti-gay law that was passed there. And sure enough, it turns out the government has been infiltrating and monitoring AIDS organizations in Kampala, the capital, and conducted a raid of sorts on one of them, charging that the organization was conducting illegal homosexual research and basically recruiting or teaching people to be gay. 2
Ugandans were arrested. The U.S. Embassy intervened for their release. The police seized condoms and safe sex manuals, took pics of patients at the clinic.
Who all ran out screaming when the government officials stood up and identified themselves in an educational session.
Mark Bromley, who is with the Council for Global Equality, says that he thinks it happened because the United States did not react strongly enough in the first place when these laws were enacted.
And of course, the AIDS organization has now been shut down pending resolution of any of this. But this is what happens when you pass a law that forbids, it's what happened in Russia too, forbidding promotion of homosexuality, then any mention of it becomes illegal.
It happened in the United States too.
Yes,
during
exactly.
the beginning of the AIDS crisis. Jesse Helms. The thing against promotion of homosexuality passed in the Senate, 98-2.
There you go.
United States, early 1980s. This is sort of staying in Africa. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, said that Christians in Africa will be attacked if English Anglicans celebrate same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
He says he saw a mass grave of 330 Christians in Nigeria massacred by neighbors who said, if we leave a Christian community here, we will all be made to become homosexuals, so we will kill all the Christians. He then condemned homophobia, but only for English people.
Well, it's terrible stuff going on, and these are real issues. And if you have
What
a
are you
world full
supposed
of
to do?
ignorance,
Well, what are you supposed to do?
well,
Say,
I don't have an easy answer to that. But
are we supposed to shut up?
No,
because
no,
we're
no,
killing.
no,
But that's what he's saying. We need to shut up about this.
Yeah, but there are 300 people dead because of fear and ignorance.
But how? Again, that is ignorance at such a level that I don't know what would appease them. If that's their reason for doing this stuff, how can we in any way take responsibility for that level of ignorance?
I'm not saying
what are we supposed to do?
Get the people out of there in the first place.
I mean, look, I sat with Peter Tatchell too. I mean,
be more
of us
proactive about education.
Yes, I know, but do any of us really know what to do to turn this situation around?
I don't know what to do to turn the human race around, which is a mess.
I know.
More about that tomorrow night.
All right.
All right, a couple of stories from Chile. Good news, Chile is moving ahead on a bill to allow transgender people to change their name or their sex identity on identifications without surgery. But sad news of the death of Vladimir Sepulveda, 21 years old, had been in a coma for 6 months after a vicious gay bashing. 21 years old, dead.
Well, a glimmer of hope in India. There's been a last-ditch plea we told you about to undo the high court ruling decision that restored the sodomy laws.
Yeah.
But now they say they will hear that plea in open court.
That is good news. All right, AIDS news.
Well, in Los Angeles, the deaths of 3 gay men from meningitis has obviously rattled the community out there. Now remember, meningitis can be passed on by kissing, coughing, or sharing utensils.
So this is bacterial and is contagious.
So the AIDS Healthcare Foundation is offering free vaccinations out there. And the more people that get vaccinated, you can reach a critical level and you can get this thing under control. People with compromised immune systems are more vulnerable, and the most recent cases come from North and West Hollywood.
And activists are charging that the Department of Public Health there has not been aggressive enough in reference to men who have sex with men, and so they're trying to put out the word. In New York City, AIDS organizations and groups met with the new health officials in the city.
Including the Commissioner of Health,
yes.
under Mayor de Blasio.
Yes, and got a much more welcoming greeting than they had in the administrations of Bloomberg and Giuliani. So
that's good.
They're talking about a more comprehensive strategy.
Are they allowed to pray before the meeting?
Yes. And we mourn the death of Dr. Charles Farthing, who was the former medical director of the AIDS Healthcare Foundation in LA. But he was originally from New Zealand. He was a dermatologist, and then he was in England in the 80s, where he started seeing these HIV cases, and he became quite fascinated by this and immersed in working on the epidemic. He ended up as the director of the AIDS program at Bellevue here in New York City. He was regarded as quite provocative because he wanted doctors to test proposed AIDS vaccines on themselves for safety. He was not taken up on that proposal readily. But he was a great advocate of more prevention and a pioneer in treatment of people with HIV and AIDS, and he has died in L.A., Dr. Charles Farthing.
But wait a minute, I saw the play Mothers and Sons, and nobody did anything. We'll talk about that later.
Well, we are at...
yeah, we are in entertainment news,
yes.
but we'll talk about Mothers and Sons.
All
First
right.
of all, I want to say something about David Letterman.
Okay.
In announcing his retirement, he continued his penchant for cheap fag jokes, because what he goes, what this means now is that Paul and I can be married.
Oh, I took that as a positive.
Oh, I think it's like, how silly.
Yes,
we are
course.
going to get married now. And that's, I don't like that stuff.
No, I don't either in general. I thought that was a little mild.
And they're making a movie on Stonewall.
I got very excited about this at first because this is the director, Roland Emmerich, who's made movies like Independence Day.
The Day After Tomorrow, the big blockbusters.
I thought, oh my God, we're going to have a big action movie about Stonewall.
Superheroes.
Oh, the special effects.
Screenplay by John Robin Bates.
Tom Cruise. We'll get all the people.
Tom Cruise will finally come out.
Yeah, well, then it turns out that, yes, he has made all these big blockbuster movies, Roland Emmerich, but he describes this as a little movie for a $12 to $14 million budget, but he's making it. And yes, Robbie Bates has written the screenplay.
And it's inspired, he said he was inspired by his visit to a homeless LGBT youth group in Los Angeles.
Yep. And he's following through. And he, it turns out, gave $250,000 to HRC last year or something. Now, whatever, but
All right.
good.
So now to some of these plays.
All right.
Well, you and I saw Terrence McNally. I like Terrence McNally's work. This was the 50th anniversary of his first work on Broadway. So he's been around.
And I saw the Ritz probably 40, 45 years ago that was a gay bathhouse.
So this one is called Mothers and Sons. We have a picture of the cast there. It's Andre's mother, about a mother who's lost her son to AIDS. 20 years later, Tyne Daly there on the right just drops in on the Central Park West apartment of one of the guys in the middle there, Frederick Weller, who was her son's surviving partner, who was gone on 8 years later to marry Bobby Steggert, and they have a little boy.
Yep.
But, you know, it touches on a lot of gay issues and things, but it's hard to sort of care about a woman, the woman Tyne Daly plays, who's almost unbelievably unevolved on the issue for 20 years. It's like she's been living under a rock. And even
just
though
as a cold human being, I mean, she's not nice to anybody.
Yeah, well, she says in the play, people don't change. So why are you showing all this stuff?
She also says people don't like me.
Well, so I mean, she's a good performer. I love Tyne Daly.
Sure. But there is a little strangely ahistorical stuff about AIDS, and there is, you know, was it Frederick Weller, I think, who says, you know, nobody did anything for us, it was all garbage or something.
Well, the government didn't do anything for us for a long time.
Yeah.
But ACT UP was out there, Larry Kramer was at GMHC. We were all out there.
Yeah,
we did stuff.
We did stuff for
ourselves. We couldn't get the Times to cover it. But we did stuff.
It was a little cheesy. Now, it got a little appealing towards the end, but it was...
And then there was If Then. This is the Idina Menzel Jamboree, and her fans are packing the place. And it's also full of gay, lesbian, and bisexual content, but this is by the people who did Next to Normal and won the Pulitzer Prize. That's Idina there with Anthony Rapp, out gay actor. But it is absolutely witless and very hard to follow because it's about parallel universes. If I did this, what would my life be like? If I did this, what would my life be like? I didn't even realize at the end, they were changing the color scheme from green to blue or something when she was Liz and when she was Beth. And I mean, oh man. But she's got her fans.
Well, and I'm one of them. And I sat there really enjoying watching her and listening to her, and the music is pleasant. But I can only review half the play because
I stayed for the whole thing.
Once again, I walked out. Well, you know, when they got to intermission, I knew this play, because I checked now these running times, and I knew this play was 2.5 hours long. And when they finally got to intermission, I thought, my God, they must have only 10 minutes left in this play. It's been going so long. And then I looked at my watch, and exactly 1 hour and 10 minutes had passed.
Oh, wow. It just felt that way.
It felt like forever, and it was pointless. It was, you know, I can appreciate the fact that it's a new play. It has nice music. It's a great attempt. But I just ended up thinking, what is the point of this?
Well, their original, this is their original design. I don't know if you can get a close-up of it, but it doesn't matter, you get close. But the point is that their new ads have made all the characters in the background gay. So I think they're really sort of pushing for that audience, because that's not what this is about.
I want a play that moves me intellectually, emotionally, amuses me something, and I just sat there going, what's the point?
Then I have 2 plays for you.
Okay.
One is The Heir Apparent. We have a picture of the cast there for this. This is David Ives, who did All in the Timing. He's very funny. He's very brilliant. He has taken this play from the early 1700s by somebody I never heard of named Jean-François Reignard, and I didn't even know when I went that it was in verse, and I sat there saying, oh no. but they're so funny and clever, and a lot of anachronistic references, crazy cast. It's the heir apparent. It's all about a will and writing a will. It's at the Classic Stage Company. I want to give special mention to this guy, Carson Elrod, who played the servant, and David Pittu, who plays the very short lawyer. It's just hilarious, and it is smart, and the rhymes are smart. So you wait for them, and you just laugh the whole time. So Classic
That
Stage
would
Company.
be, even for those of us who don't always enjoy farce.
Maybe not. I don't know. I liked it, but not a farce, but with plenty.
And I should say, just because we have a few seconds for me to do this, I have talked to several people who saw the Terrence McNally Mothers and Sons, the Tyne Daly play, and really enjoyed it.
Our friend Tom Viola of Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS gave it a rave on Facebook. And
I know people who aren't involved with Broadway who were moved by it.
Well, I mean, I was not liking the play, but I have to say I welled up a couple of times towards the end.
Yeah.
There was some obvious sentimentality in it, but he tries to deal with a lot of modern gay issues. I just didn't think it was his best.
I agree. I just want to acknowledge that our views are our views, and other people may have different reactions.
Yes, we tried to do that.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people are liking Raisin in the Sun, the revival. Kenny Leon is the director. I think it's very powerful direction. Of course, the key here is Denzel Washington, at the age of 59, playing the father, who's supposed to be more like 39, I think. But he is, Denzel is a tough cookie, but a fabulous actor. And this is a very unsympathetic role. I mean, when Sidney Poitier did it in the movie, it was a little bit cleaned up a little bit. But this character is very unsympathetic in this family. It's about you know the plot of, it's by an out lesbian, Lorraine Hansberry. And he's just terrific. The whole cast is, and there's a lot to chew on in the play. I even saw Skip Gates over there, having a great time on the aisle with his seats.
Not having a beer?
No, but he was, was laughing. There's some tough language in there in that play.
Okay. And congratulations to Sarah Gilbert. This is the new daytime thing, lesbians getting married.
Yeah.
She married her girlfriend, Linda Perry, famous songwriter. Sarah is the creator of and is on The Talk on CBS, daytime talk show. So now we have Ellen is the married lesbian on her talk show, and Sarah Gilbert is the married lesbian on her talk show. I guess The View is going to have to replace Barbara Walters with a marrying lesbian. They have missed out on that so far. All right, well, that's it for us this week. If you want to be on our email list, write to andyhum@aol.com, and we will be back next week.
We will.
With more news.
Would you like this?
No.